5 days ago, the world changed. At 2:30 in the morning, Washington time, on February 28, 2026, President Donald Trump appeared in an 8-minute video address on Truth Social and announced the launch of a joint American-Israeli military operation against Iran. The operation was given the name Epic Fury on the American side and Roaring Lion on the Israeli side. Within the first hours, strikes were carried out against Tehran, Isfahan, Qom, Karaj, and Kermanshah. Among the first targets was the residence of Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. By the end of day one, Iranian state television, through tears, reported that Khamenei was dead. On March 2nd, it was confirmed that his wife, Mansoureh Khojaste Bagharzadeh, had also died from injuries sustained in the strike. The war that was never supposed to happen has begun, and already today it is becoming clear. It will last far longer, cost far more, and raise far more questions than it answers. How it began, the negotiations that failed to save the peace. To understand what happened, we need to step back a little. In late 2025 and early 2026, Iran was swept by a wave of massive anti-government protests, the largest since the Islamic Revolution of 1979. By various estimates, the authorities brutally suppressed the unrest. The Iranian government officially acknowledged around 3,000 dead. Independent human rights organizations reported figures ranging from 7,000 to 32,000. Trump had already declared in January 2026 that help is on the way for Iranian protesters and warned Tehran of possible military intervention. At the same time, diplomatic negotiations were underway. On February 6th, the first round of indirect nuclear talks between the United States and Iran took place in Muscat, brokered by Oman. A second round was held in Geneva and, according to Oman's Foreign Minister Badr al-Busaidi, made substantial progress. He publicly urged Washington not to get sucked in further to a conflict with Iran. It was a plea that went unanswered. On February 27th, the International Atomic Energy Agency reported that Iran had concealed significant stocks of highly enriched uranium in an underground facility, beyond the reach of inspectors. This report appears to have been the final straw. According to American sources, Trump authorized the strike after receiving intelligence suggesting Iran was planning a preemptive strike against American assets in the region. However, the Pentagon subsequently informed Congress in closed-door briefings that no such intelligence existed. There was no evidence that Iran was planning to attack the United States first. The first days, the face of war. The strike was overwhelming. In the first 24 hours, American aircraft fired tens of thousands of munitions, including Tomahawk cruise missiles launched from U.S. Navy warships. B-2 stealth bombers were deployed to hit Iranian ballistic missile production facilities. The Israeli Air Force conducted over 1,600 sorties and dropped more than 4,000 munitions. According to CENTCOM Commander Admiral Brad Cooper, by March 3rd, 17 Iranian vessels had been destroyed, including a submarine, the first time a submarine had been sunk in combat since World War II. On March 4th, an American submarine sank the Iranian frigate Dana in the Indian Ocean, approximately 75 kilometers off the coast of Sri Lanka. It was the first warship sunk by a submarine in actual combat since the Falklands War in 1982. Israel called up an additional 20,000 reservists on top of the 50,000 already mobilized. By the end of day 4, the Israeli Air Force had taken out, according to official figures, 300 missile launch systems. Iran's national broadcasting headquarters was destroyed. Iran's parliament building was struck while the Assembly of Experts was meeting to elect a new supreme leader to replace the fallen Khamenei. According to CENTCOM data, American forces hit approximately 2,000 targets inside Iran in the first 3 days alone. Civilian casualties. The Iranian side reports more than 1,200 dead. The most devastating single incident was a strike on a school in the city of Minab in southern Iran. According to Iran's Ministry of Health, approximately 180 schoolgirls were killed. Israel stated it was not conducting operations in that area. CENTCOM said it was looking into the reports. According to the New York Times, the school was located just 60 meters from a major Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps naval base. 6 American service members were killed by the end of day 5. 4 of them were reservists from the 103rd Sustainment Command out of Iowa, killed by an Iranian drone at the Kuwaiti port of Shuaibah. Trump publicly acknowledged more casualties will follow. Iran's response: the war spreads across the entire region. Iran did exactly what it had promised. It struck American assets and allies across the entire Middle East. The operation was named True Promise 4. Attacks were recorded in Kuwait, the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Jordan, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Israel. The IRGC claimed strikes against at least 27 American bases across the region. The U.S. Embassy in Riyadh was hit by 2 drones. The U.S. consulate in Dubai was struck on March 4th. Dubai and Kuwait international airports shut down operations. The iconic Burj Al Arab Hotel was damaged by Iranian attacks. In total, the UAE officially reported intercepting 169 of 182 detected missiles. Kuwait intercepted 178 ballistic missiles and 384 drones. Lebanon became a battlefield once again, as Israel struck Hezbollah positions and the death toll there climbed above 77. An Iranian missile flew through the airspace of Iraq and Syria and was intercepted by NATO air defense systems over Turkey, an attack on a NATO member state. In the Strait of Hormuz, there is a de facto blockade. An IRGC commander declared the strait closed and warned that any vessel attempting to pass would be set ablaze. 5 oil tankers have been damaged, and approximately 150 vessels are waiting at the entrance to the strait. Traffic has dropped by at least 80%. The Iraqi front deserves particular attention. Iranian-backed Shia militias in Iraq are intensifying their attacks against American positions. The rate of Iranian missile salvos targeting Israel decreased somewhat by March 4th compared to the first days of the war. Analysts point to the gradual depletion of Iran's missile stocks and launch systems, as well as an Iranian strategy of rationing for a prolonged campaign. Overall, Iran has launched 8 waves of missile attacks against Israel in the last 24 hours alone, 2 of which were coordinated simultaneously with Hezbollah strikes from Lebanon. 100 days: how the Trump administration came to grasp the scale of the problem. On February 28th, Trump declared the operation would take 1 month or even less. By March 2nd, he revised that estimate to 4 to 5 weeks, but we have the capability to go far longer. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth assured reporters at the Pentagon briefing, "This is not Iraq, this is not endless. This is a clear, devastating, decisive mission." But inside the system, the picture is very different. According to Politico, which obtained internal documents, CENTCOM has formally requested that the Pentagon send additional military intelligence personnel to its headquarters in Florida to sustain operations against Iran for at least 100 days. This means planning is already underway for a prolonged campaign that could stretch all the way to September of 2026. At the same time, the Pentagon is working to deploy additional air defense systems to the region, particularly smaller and less expensive counter-drone technologies developed in recent years. The State Department has begun allocating additional resources to evacuate American diplomatic staff from more than a dozen countries across the Middle East. By March 3rd, approximately 9,000 U.S. citizens had been evacuated. More than 1,500 had requested assistance in departing. As one source close to the Trump administration told Politico, the administration had not fully anticipated the wide fallout of the war. That admission speaks volumes. Trump's plan: a collection of contradictions. What exactly is Washington's strategy? That question is being asked by everyone, from Democratic senators to America's closest allies. In the space of 5 days, the Trump administration publicly offered at least 5 different justifications for starting this war. Justification 1: Iran was developing missiles capable of reaching the United States. This claim was contradicted, according to CNN, by the Trump administration's own Defense Intelligence Agency assessments. According to those analysts, Iran could develop a militarily viable intercontinental ballistic missile only by around 2035, and only if Tehran made a deliberate political decision to pursue that capability. Justification 2: a preemptive response to a planned Iranian strike against American assets. a version that the Pentagon itself contradicted in classified briefings to Congress, where officials acknowledged there was no intelligence indicating Iran intended to strike the United States first. Justification 3. The destruction of Iran's missile capabilities and naval forces. Justification 4. Preventing Iran from ever obtaining a nuclear weapon. Justification 5. Regime change. This goal was spelled out by Trump himself in his late-night video address on February 28, when he called on Iranians to take over your government and urged IRGC fighters to lay down your weapons and have complete immunity, or in the alternative, face certain death. Yet at the official level, the administration carefully avoids formally acknowledging regime change as an objective. When White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt was directly asked whether that was the goal, she gave an evasive answer. The Pentagon has officially stated 4 objectives: eliminating Iran's missile threat, destroying its naval capacity, dismantling its missile and drone production, and ending its path to a nuclear weapon. Hegseth added, "More and larger waves are coming. We are just getting started." According to retired Vice Admiral Kevin Donegan, former commander of the U.S. Navy's Fifth Fleet, the strategic ambiguity may be intentional. "You want to have ambiguity in their minds of how far the U.S. will take this," he said. But analysts warn that blurred objectives make it impossible to know when they have been achieved or when to stop. As Richard Fontaine, chief executive of the Center for a New American Security, put it, "If you don't know what you're fighting for, then among other things you don't know when you've attained it, and you don't know when to stop." The Senate voted down a resolution on Wednesday that would have required Trump to seek congressional authorization for continued military action. Republicans backed the president. Nevertheless, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, after a classified briefing with Secretary of State Marco Rubio, told reporters, "I found their answers completely and totally insufficient." That briefing raised many more questions than it answered. Senator Mark Warner, a member of the Senate Intelligence Committee, called on Trump to go before Congress and the American people and decide amongst these 4 or 5 goals that have been laid out. What is the real goal? What is the objective? What is our exit plan? Senator Mark Kelly on Sunday put the question that millions of Americans are quietly asking: what is the strategic goal, and how do we achieve it? Trump pulled America into an adventure. The price everyone is paying. This is the narrative that is now gathering force inside the United States, and not only among Trump's critics, but among parts of his own traditional base. Trump came to power on a platform of America First, promising to end American interventionism, to stop the forever wars, and to bring the money home. Now he has started his own war. The economic bill has already been presented. On February 28th, Brent crude oil was trading at around $71 per barrel. By March 4th, it had climbed to $81.73, a 15% increase in a single week. That was the fastest spike in oil prices since March 2022, when Russia invaded Ukraine. The average price of gasoline across the United States jumped from $2.94 to $3.19 per gallon in just 3 days. According to the gas price tracking app GasBuddy, the national average is projected to reach $3.30 to $3.35 in the near term. And if the Strait of Hormuz remains blocked, Wall Street analysts are warning of a potential breach of $100 per barrel. Markets reacted with sharp falls. On Monday, the Dow Jones Industrial Average lost more than 1,200 points at its session low. The S&P 500 and the Nasdaq each fell more than 2.5%. Asian markets recorded record sell-offs. European indices shed between 2 and 4%. For American consumers, this means concrete, tangible losses. Right now, not in theory. And that is precisely what Trump promised would not happen under his watch. Trump himself acknowledged in passing that there would be a little high oil prices for a little while, but insisted that once the war is over, prices will fall even lower than before. The question is, when exactly does this war end? Behind the Strait of Hormuz lies a question that touches not just American, but global economic stability. About 20% of the world's oil passes through that waterway, along with 20% of global liquefied natural gas exports. 30% of Europe's jet fuel supply either originates from or transits through the strait. The primary buyers are China, India, Japan, and South Korea. According to Japan's Nomura Bank, the most vulnerable economies are Thailand, India, South Korea, and the Philippines. The global shipping giant Maersk has already announced it is rerouting vessels around the Cape of Good Hope, rather than through the Suez Canal. Trump attempted to contain the panic by announcing that the U.S. Navy would escort oil tankers through the Strait of Hormuz if necessary, and ordered a federal agency to provide political risk insurance for energy carriers operating in the Persian Gulf. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent promised additional measures to support oil trade. The White House, however, has declined to give any timeline for when the strait will be safe again. There are also hidden military costs that are not being discussed publicly. Sources inside the Pentagon report growing concern over the depletion of stocks of key munitions. Trump denies this, claiming the United States has a virtually unlimited supply of weapons. It is worth noting, however, that National Guard units mobilized for operations in Venezuela were abruptly redirected to support the war in Iran, with Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Kane, acknowledging that resources are being stretched to the limit. What comes next? 4 scenarios. The situation is developing along several possible trajectories, and none of them look simple. Scenario 1. A swift political settlement. Trump has indicated that Iran's new interim leadership, the Interim Leadership Council established after Khamenei's death, headed by Ali Larijani, has sent signals of willingness to negotiate. Trump said he would speak with them at some point, though with no specific timeline. This window remains open, but it could close quickly. Iranian society, hardened by the death of its supreme leader and mass civilian casualties, is unlikely to forgive any leadership that capitulates too fast. Large mourning gatherings have taken place in Tehran with fierce anti-American and anti-Israeli chanting. Iran has declared 40 days of national mourning for Khamenei. Scenario 2. A prolonged air campaign. CENTCOM is planning operations for a minimum of 100 days. General Kane has stated that strikes will go progressively deeper into Iranian territory. This means the gradual destruction of Iran's state infrastructure, from military installations to command centers. Israel is systematically taking out Iran's air defense systems, doing what could not be fully accomplished during the 12-day war of 2025. Hegseth promised that within a matter of days, the United States and Israel will achieve complete control of Iranian skies. Scenario 3. Escalation and geographic expansion. An Iranian missile has already entered the airspace of Turkey, a NATO member. Kurdish armed forces, specifically the PJAK, reportedly launched military operations into Iranian territory from Iraqi soil. On March 4th, Trump held phone calls with Kurdish leaders Masoud Barzani and Bafel Talabani, discussing, in the words of official readouts, the next stages of the war in Iran. The White House denies having agreed to any plan to arm Kurdish forces, but the very fact that this is being discussed tells its own story. Scenario 4. Ground operations. Trump has said he does not rule out the use of ground forces. Officially, the White House maintains that ground operations are not part of the plan for now. But Iran is a country of 85 million people with deep experience in irregular warfare, a vast network of militias, and thousands of years of history resisting foreign invaders. Any military analyst will tell you what separates the Iran campaign from Iraq and Afghanistan is a single threshold, and it is not a high one. The voices of dissent. This is not your war. Oman's Foreign Minister Badr al-Busaidi wrote on X in the opening hours of the war, "I urge the United States not to get sucked in further. This is not your war." Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer called the administration's explanations completely and totally insufficient. Democratic Senator Mark Warner, a member of the Intelligence Committee, demanded that Trump go before Congress and the American people and decide amongst these 4 or 5 goals that have been laid out. What is the real goal, and what is our exit plan? Senator Mark Kelly posed the question on live television on Sunday that is troubling millions of Americans. What is the strategic goal, and how do we achieve it? Within Trump's own MAGA movement, unease is also growing. Trump promised his voters an end to forever wars, and now he has started one himself. Hegseth was compelled to specifically address that base. This is not Iraq, this is not endless, but CENTCOM's 100-day planning document already suggests otherwise. The fundamental problem is the absence of an exit strategy. Neither Trump, nor Hegseth, nor Rubio has given a clear answer to the question. What must happen for this war to end? Regime change in Iran without a ground operation is impossible, and Iran is not Libya, and it is not Iraq. It is a country with powerful state institutions, decentralized command chains, and a nuclear program dispersed across hundreds of underground facilities. 5 days in, the numbers. As of the end of March 5, 2026, deaths in Iran, more than 1,200, according to Iranian sources. Deaths in Lebanon, more than 77, including 7 children killed in the past 24 hours alone. Deaths in Israel, 11. Deaths in the UAE, 3. American service members killed, 6. Iranian military personnel and officials killed, more than 2,100, according to estimates by the Hengor organization. Targets struck by U.S. forces, approximately 2,000. Israeli Air Force sorties, more than 1,600. Iranian naval vessels destroyed, 17, plus the frigate Dina sunk by submarine. Price of Brent crude oil, $81.73 per barrel. Average U.S. gasoline price, $3.19 per gallon, and rising. Iranian missile attack waves against Israel in the last 24 hours. 8. Flight cancellations across the region since the war began, more than 11,000. Conclusion: a war that is only beginning. 5 days ago, Trump promised 4 weeks. His military is planning for 100 days. Some analysts cautiously speak of several months. Nobody is naming an end date. Iran is burning through munitions, but adapting strategically, rationing its missiles for a prolonged confrontation. Its proxy networks in Iraq, Lebanon, and Yemen continue to operate. The Strait of Hormuz is blocked. Global markets are on edge. American forces are stretched thin across the Middle East. The Trump administration launched this war with a shifting set of contradictory justifications, without a clear plan for victory and without a coherent exit strategy. It underestimated the scale of Iran's response and the regional consequences that would follow. Now it is requesting additional personnel, moving resources into position, and planning 100 days ahead. This is not the war that was promised to the American people. This is a war that is only gathering force, and the people who will pay for it, in the lives of service members, in gas prices at the pump, in market instability, and in global uncertainty, will be first and foremost ordinary Americans. The next 100 days will show whether this was a brilliant geopolitical gamble or the most costly adventure of Donald Trump's second term.